Hi, in this video we will discuss file system versus database management system. In the previous class, we understood that file system was replaced by database management system in the year 1960. In file system, we are storing the data in files, whereas if you consider database, there also we are going to store the data in files only. But the difference in file system and database is the way we are handling the file. That means file handling is different in file system and database. File handling is nothing but creating files, manipulating files, accessing files. These are three things we are going to do with respect to files. One is creating, another one is manipulating, another one is accessing. Let us consider a file. For example, this file may be some Excel file. There we are storing the records of students, just like a attendance details in one Excel file and fee details in another Excel file and results of a student in another Excel file. Like that we are maintaining different Excel files. If there are similar group of files are there, for that we are going to keep it into one folder. Whenever similar folders are there means those folders we are going to put it in one directory. All these things what we will do, where we will store? We have to store finally in the hard disk only. Database also you have to store it in hard disk only. In file system the files are distributed and they are individual files, whereas coming to the database management system, we are going to keep the files centrally. So you can say that here also you are using file systems and under DBMS also we are using file system. Because of this management, as the data is maintained centrally in database management system, we have so many advantages. See, regarding the major advantage of database management system over file system, or you can say in another way, the disadvantage of the file system, or simply you can say file system versus database management system. These are the ways we can say that database has some advantages. We are going to see one by one. One is data abstraction, data sharing, data redundancy, data inconsistency, concurrency access, security and protection, integrity constraints, efficient storage and retrieval, recovery mechanism, data independence, flexibility. We are going to discuss each and individual advantage of database management system. Let us consider an example where the students need to know the information about his attendance, fee details and the result. For that case, the student has to go to the department and he has to check his attendance. The same student, he has to go to the account section to know his fee details. If he want result, again he has to go to the exam cell to see his result. So what happens? Individual files are maintained at different locations. So the student has to go to different locations so that he can get the information about all these things. That means in the case of file system, here the data is distributed. Coming to database, where all the details about a student are stored centrally in the database, so that if you want any details regarding his attendance, fee or result, he can specify his login details. He can get all the details at one place. That is possible in the case of database. So here data stored centrally. Let us consider data abstraction. First of all, we need to understand what is meant by data abstraction. Hiding unnecessary information is nothing but data abstraction. Whereas in the case of file system, data abstraction is not at all possible. If you consider any file, it will give you the full information. It is not at all possible to show a part of a file. Whereas coming to database management system, it allows the abstract view of the database. For example, if you consider a bank employee, he is a user, he wants to access the database with the help of database management system. Here the user is allowed to access the database with the help of GUI and application programs, but he don't know about where the data is stored, what is the data structure you are using, what is the accessing method. In this way, you are hiding the information about all these things and you are allowing the user just to access the database. Let us consider data sharing. In the case of file system, it is difficult to share the data due to the files are distributed and those files may be in different formats. In the case of database management system, it is easy to share the data as the data is centralized. Let us understand data redundancy. Redundancy means duplicate data. To access any data efficiently, we need to reduce the redundancy. Then now we will consider the same previous example and we need to understand what about the data redundancy in file system as well as in the database management system. See, if you consider any student, he needs to know about his attendance, fee and result. We understood that in the case of file system, they are maintaining with different files. But each and every file, we need to put the personal information. That means we have have personal information in department file, we have personal information in accounts file, we have personal information in result file. That means there is a duplication of this personal information in all the three files. That means three copies are here. This is nothing but the duplication. This is called as a redundancy. We need to reduce the redundancy. Coming to database management system, here all the data stored at one place in database in terms of tables, only one table you have for personal information and it is connected to all the other tables. One table meant for attendance, another table meant for fee, another table meant for result. So in this case there is no duplication, so we can easily say data redundancy is less in the case of DBMS and it is more in the case of file system. That means what happens here, data redundancy need to be reduced, but here in the case of file system data redundancy is more. If you consider database management system, data redundancy is less. Let us consider data inconsistency. That means the details of a student suppose different in different places, that is nothing but a inconsistency. Okay, you can see here the actual student name is suppose for example BV Ramana, but unfortunately in the case of department in his personal details it has written like BVR, in another case it is written like Ramana BV, in another file like BV Ramana. That means actual name is BV Ramana, but unfortunately it has written like BVR in department, in accounts like Ramana BV, exams are like BV Ramana. You want to know the information about BV Ramana regarding the attendance, fee and results. We face so many difficulties to understand that whether three are same or not. That's a problem. That is nothing but a inconsistency. Whereas in the case of database, we understood earlier. So here we have only one name, that is the right name BV Ramana. So there is no confusion here. There is no inconsistency in the case of database management system, but in the case of file system there is a inconsistency. In the case of DBMS there is no inconsistency. Our aim is we need to reduce the or eliminate the inconsistency. That we need to do. That data inconsistency is not there in the case of database management system, but it is there in the case of file system. Let us concentrate to understand concurrent access in the case of file system and database management system. In the case of file system, concurrent access may lead to many problems while updation. In the case of DBMS, concurrent access is easily controlled by using locking. Let us consider railway reservation. We have more than 20,000 trains and each train can accommodate more than 1,000 people. You can imagine that at a point of time, many number of users they want to access the railway database for their reservation. Still, by using locking technique, we are allocating an individual berth for each individual. So that is possible by using the database management system. Regarding security and protection, it's not easy to protect a file. Whereas in the case of database management system, unauthorized users are not allowed to access the database, whereas authorized users are allowed to use the part of the database. Let us consider the integrity constraints. In the case of file systems, it is difficult to apply. In DBMS, it is easy to apply the integrity constraints. Let us consider one example for integrity constraints on DBMS, that is domain constraint. It is something like this. If you take a table, for each attribute, we are specifying a data type. That means whatever the values under the attributes, all are same type. That is nothing but the domain constraint. In the case of file system, efficient storage and efficient retrieval are not possible. Whereas in the case of database management system, this efficient storage and retrieval is possible. These are the two purposes of the database. In file system, there is no recovery mechanism. If any system crash, there is a loss of file in the case of file system. Whereas in the case of DBMS, if any system crash happens, we can easily recover the data. Coming to data independence, it is not at all existed in the case of file system. In DBMS, there is a existence of data independence. There are two types of data independence. One is logical data independence, another one is physical data independence. Regarding flexibility in the case of file system, it is less flexible. In the case of DBMS, it is more flexible. What it means? Less flexible means any changes are there, it's very difficult to do that. Whereas in the case of DBMS, easily we can adopt any changes. In the next video, we will discuss in detail about data abstraction and 3 levels of data abstraction. Thank you.